Welcome back to the Exhausted docuseries. I'm Nick Palizzi.
And I'm Dr. Pedram Shojai. Thank you for joining us.
Before we get started, if you haven't watched episode 3, we highly recommend you do so.
That one's all about energy thieves, or practices and environmental factors that quietly leach the life force right out of you.
We're talking about everything from toxins to hidden infections to coffee addiction to workaholism, lions and tigers and bears, oh my. But in all seriousness, zeroing in on one or two of these energy vampires along with making the necessary changes could change your life.
In episode 4, we're going to be exploring some of the most powerful lifestyle components when it comes to revitalizing your body and lifting overall energy levels. There are a number of factors when it comes to energy, and you've heard about some of these: the harmful toxins to stay away from, macro and micronutrients to be loading yourself with more of, and the devastating effects of an immune system that's constantly under attack from foreign pathogens. Sometimes, however, the solution is far more simple than you once imagined. And in this episode, we might just help you find that simple hack that can have a dramatic impact on your overall health and energy. Let's see what Nick has in store for us.
Did you know that 90% of your energy throughout the day is determined by the quantity and quality of sleep you get at night? Seems easy, right? Might as well just skip this episode and take a nap. Not so fast. The majority of adults in the Western world have challenges when it comes to shut-eye. We need to retrain our minds and bodies to give ourselves the restorative Z's that we used to get when we were babies. How? That's where we're going next.
There are literally hundreds of myths about where do we get energy from, but I can honestly tell you without question the data is incredibly supportive. 90% of your energy comes from rest and healing. And so it's always amazing to me, because sleep really is healing. It's always amazing to me how people don't allow themselves to heal by doing things that basically mess up their sleep, whether it's going to bed at an irregular schedule, using caffeine until 9 o'clock at night, drinking themselves to sleep with alcohol. It's really pretty amazing.
I think the reason people are so tired really is multifactorial. I think people are, by and large, absolutely not getting enough sleep. And we don't really talk about sleep, and we really should. We need 8 hours of restorative sleep, and that means 1/3 of your life, 1/3 of your day, extrapolate that to your entire life, should be spent doing this activity that we previously thought was a time of non-productivity. The reality is it's an incredibly important time for you to clean up your brain, for you to set the reset button so that the next day you can be energetic and you can be much more productive.
So lots of people think that when you go to sleep, you put the car in park. Nothing could be further from the truth, right? You're kind of actually throwing it down into third gear, and I would argue that in REM sleep, you're actually putting it into overdrive. And so that has kind of been a big misconception in terms of what's going on during sleep. Obviously, there's a recharge going on here somehow, some way. Our body is healing. Again, sleep is healing. And so whenever you're putting the body to sleep, it's really allowing for a regeneration on the physical side, but there's also a regeneration on the mental side as well. We now know that during sleep, this is when you move information from your short-term memory to your long-term memory, specifically during REM sleep. We know that there's a physical restoration that occurs during stage 3-4 sleep, where there's also a filtering of information. So sleep is not really the close your eyes, plug your body into some resource and charge it back up. This is an active process, and there's a lot of stuff that's going on at night.
One thing that isn't really talked about is how fatigue is really a symptom of brain inflammation. When your body is inflamed, you feel pain. When your brain is inflamed, you feel fatigue. And what happens during sleep is your brain actually cleans itself. It shrinks by as much as 60%, and there's almost like a car wash activity where the brain cells called glial cells and your lymphatic system combine. They call it the glymphatic system. It moves fluid through the brain and cleans it and drains down the side of your neck. So if you're not sleeping, you're never cleaning your brain properly. And that's when toxins cause inflammation. So the lack of sleep is a big contributor to fatigue, not just because you're not resting, but because fatigue starts in the brain. It starts from inflammation in the brain, and inflammation is triggered by toxins. So if you're not getting that restful sleep where toxins can be eliminated, you are going to continue to feel fatigue.
We are sleep deprived. I mean, I think there's something like 25 million people that, complain of fatigue, and they've had it for greater than 1 month. If we could just sleep at night, that would fix a huge portion of our fatigue. Now, it's not the magic bullet, but again, it's a piece of it. So you have to sleep, and you have to sleep well. There are people who snore. They have sleep apnea, right? They have restless legs. They have a partner or a husband or somebody who snores that's just as bad as them snoring, right? They have a dog in their bedroom like I have that's not in the bed, but in the bedroom, who snores loudly. They're not sleeping. We're not getting good quality, deep sleep. We're not. And you certainly can't do that if you have cell phones in your bedroom, computers, wireless routers, TVs, all those things. I tell my patients, the bed is for sleep and sex only. If you're not doing one or the other, get out of it.
Sleep is such a big amorphous topic. Can you break it down a little bit so people can better understand what's happening when they sleep?
First of all, there's two different systems in the brain for sleep. One is called your sleep drive. The other is called your sleep rhythm. So when we talk about sleep drive, this is a lot like hunger, right? So I'm hungry. I eat something, that hunger begins to dissipate. The same holds true with sleep. However, it's actually a neurochemical process. When a cell eats a piece of glucose, something comes out the back end. One of those things is a property called adenosine. Adenosine kind of works its way around your system, ends up in a very specific area of your brain. And as that adenosine increases and increases and increases, you get sleepier and sleepier and sleepier. That's how sleep drive really works. Sleep rhythm is the second system, and this is your circadian rhythm, right? So also kind of like hunger, you get hungry around breakfast time, around lunch time, and around dinner time. Same holds true with sleep. Most people have a tendency to get sleepy kind of around somewhere between like 10 to 11 o'clock at night. Now, to be fair, there are some people who are early birds and there are some people who are night owls. And so those numbers might shift a little, but again, that circadian rhythm is pretty consistent.
We've been told we need to get 8 hours of sleep. This is sort of the classic advice: get your 8 hours of sleep, and that part of the equation is taken care of. Well, here's the reality. The amount of time that you're spending in bed is actually just one part of the equation when it comes to your sleep. There's this whole other aspect of it, which is called the circadian rhythm. And the circadian rhythm is essentially a 24-hour clock in your brain. And through signals from the environment, mainly light signals that get transmitted from the eyes back into this clock in the brain, in this part of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, this clock now regulates all kinds of things like neurotransmitters. It impacts on things like dopamine and serotonin and GABA and orexin, all kinds of neurotransmitters that affect our mood and our energy levels and our performance and our sleep. And it also impacts on a variety of different hormones, things like thyroid hormone and leptin and levels of inflammatory cytokines and how mitochondria are functioning, you name it. It has widespread effects on neurotransmitters and hormones that regulate all kinds of processes in our body, from our energy to our mood, to our appetite, to our body composition, and so on.
So we break sleep down into multiple stages. There are 4 what we call non-REM stages and 1 REM stage, for a total of 5 sleep stages. Now, we could get super technical and I could tell you what every single stage kind of does for the body, but the truth of the matter is there's 2 different types of sleep that are the most important for everybody out there to know. One is stage 3 and 4 sleep combined, what we call deep or delta sleep. This is the physical restoration that occurs. And then REM sleep, which is the mental restoration that occurs. So the differences here is during stage 3, 4, here's what happens. All of your body functions start to slow down. Blood pressure drops, heart rate drops, respiration drops. So your body is almost going into a little bit of a hibernation there, because all the repair that has to go on, cellular repair, all these different things, any insults or injuries that you might have had during the day, all that occurs during stage 3, 4 sleep, primarily because there's an influence or an influx of something called growth hormone. So growth hormone is like the anti-aging holy grail. Like everybody wants to increase growth hormone because, again, it helps with this whole idea of rejuvenation from a physical standpoint. If we move on over to REM sleep, this is all the mental good stuff. So this is, again, where people are moving information from their short-term memory to their long-term memory. As a matter of fact, what happens with this information is it gets kind of put into an organizational substructure in the brain for easy retrieval, because that's how you answer questions, is by taking information that's stored in your brain and being able to talk about it or put it together in a way, shape, and form that makes sense. So when we're looking at sleep, we want to look at the stages of sleep, but we also want to look at the number of cycles of sleep. You're probably saying, okay, wait, you told me about stages, drive, rhythm. What's a cycle of sleep? So interestingly, there's a pattern. So we go from wake to stage 1, stage 2, down into 3, 4, where that physical healing occurs, back to stage 2, and then into REM sleep. That little kind of dance move, if you will, takes roughly 90 minutes. We actually end up having 5 of those sleep cycles across the night, and that's really where we start to learn more. So for example, if somebody wakes up in the middle of a sleep cycle, they're gonna feel terrible, especially if they wake up out of deep sleep, because it's such a deep sleep, your body wants to go back to it. Whereas if you wake up in stage 1 or 2, boom, you're up and ready to roll. So there's a lot of things that you can do to kind of manipulate and understand what's going on with sleep staging and cycling.
It's nighttime. It's dark. You've had a long day and you're tired. Yet when your head hits the pillow, you still can't get to sleep. Why are so many people having this problem?
The fundamental problem is that the modern world is almost perfectly designed to disrupt our circadian clock in our brain. We are designed for ample light exposure during the day, lots and lots of sunlight, and staring at bright skies during the day. And instead, we've shifted mostly indoors to dimly lit environments. And then in the evening, after the sun goes down, when we should not be exposed to any light within the blue wavelengths or blue and green wavelengths, which are the primary wavelengths of light that go through the eyes and affect the circadian clock and give it that signal, it's daytime, the time to be awake, alert, active, and energetic. We're normally designed not to have that after the sun goes down. Well, we now live in a world filled with man-made artificial light sources, things like indoor lighting, things like street lighting, house lighting, computer screens, phones, TVs, tablets, lots and lots of other sources of man-made artificial light that now create they're emitting blue light that's hitting our eyes and giving that circadian clock in the brain the signal it's daytime, the time to be awake, alert, active, and energetic. So when that happens after the sun goes down, that now creates mixed signals to the circadian clock in the brain where it starts to not know the proper cycles of light and darkness, and when it should be upregulating all these neurotransmitters involved in wakefulness and energy, and when it should be downregulating those and shifting more into sleep and rest and regeneration mode.
What exactly are circadian rhythms, and how can we figure out what ours are and how they work in order to get a better night's sleep?
Just like every other animal on the planet, we depend on the sun and the rhythms of the sun to actually tell our physiology what to do. So we're actually hardwired this way. And so it's important for us to realize that first and foremost. So our exposure to natural sunlight is what will regulate our sleep cycle. Now that we're exposed to artificial light, we actually sleep much less because our physiology and our biology has a harder time figuring out what time of day it is. And so this artificial light exposure has decreased the amount of time that we spend sleeping. It's increased our production of stress-related hormones, and it's negatively affecting our ability to rest and regenerate. So the first thing we want to do is start regulating people's sleep and wake cycle. It starts regulating their circadian rhythms. Their hormones start regulating the way they're supposed to, and then everything falls back into rhythm. And so sleep is so huge, it's overlooked. It's easy when you do it right, when you know what the rules are of sleep and how to go deeper into sleep and gamify sleep. You'll get much better results when you do that. And then you can actually measure these things. So you can wear certain tracking devices that will help you measure how deep your sleep is, that will measure how many times you're waking up, will measure what your heart rate variability is, so how well you're recovering from your sleep, and it'll give you tools that you can use to gamify the whole process. One of the things that we want to make sure that people are doing when they're sleeping is that they're just as specific as they are with their diet, just as regulated as people are with their diet and with their exercise program. That's how important they have to make sleep. In fact, sleep would probably be even more important than those things.
So if you picture a strong circadian rhythm as a sort of a big peak and a deep trough, what that means is up here during the daytime, you have strong neurotransmitter and hormonal signaling to be awake, alert, active, and energetic. And down here, you have strong signaling to be restful, tired, sleepy, to do all the cellular regeneration processes and go into deep restorative sleep. So these two things, sleep and energy, are two sides of the same coin, and they're linked via the circadian rhythm. Now, what happens in the modern world, where you have all these signaling, these layers in the environment that create signals that blunt the circadian rhythm, is you have a much more shallow or weak peak in terms of your circadian rhythm, and you have a blunted trough. So basically, you get an epidemic of fatigue issues and an epidemic of sleep issues. And that's exactly what we have in the world today, where we have millions of people struggling with their sleep, struggling with their energy. And one of the big layers to that story is the circadian rhythm.
What's missing in our understanding of sleep? We all know it's important, but what do we need to know about our own sleep in order to do it better?
The roadmap for getting better sleep and the choices we make are what are called sleep hygiene. It's not the quality of the sleep. The hygiene part is making those choices. And I think that, we have to recognize the human body does absolutely function in relationship to a circadian rhythm. And it's done that for 2 million years. Suddenly, we are challenging that circadian rhythm by exposing ourselves to light in an inappropriate way. Our ancestors were guided by the cycles of the sun and, to a lesser extent, cycles of the moon, but significantly by the amount of light that was available during the day. Lots of sunlight, lots of blue light would suppress melatonin. We'd be alert and active and able to deal with the demands of our day. As nighttime comes and the sun sets, naturally our exposure to blue light wanes, and as such, our brains produce from the pineal gland melatonin. It says, guess what? Get ready, you're going to go to sleep. But suddenly, in the blink of an eye, we've challenged that relationship with our incredible exposure to blue light. With our phones, our tablets, our televisions, any kind of digital screen is suppressing the production of melatonin and having an incredibly important impact on our ability to drop into sleep and to get quality sleep.
The sleep hormone melatonin is released in response to darkness. And so many of us, when we're looking at our phone before bed or our computer or even watching television, we're getting all of that light, and it's confusing to our brain. It's like, wait a minute, it seems dark outside, but I'm getting all this light. So really limiting your exposure to light before bed. If you can, have blackout shades and make your room as dark as possible. That includes things beside your bed, like not having your alarm right by your bed, turning it away so that it seems darker. Also, the electromagnetics kind of throw us off, so you really don't want to sleep with your phone plugged in or any electronics plugged in, closer than 6 feet from your head. And that even includes moving your bed slightly away from the wall, because there's all that electricity running through the wall. So the more you can kind of help your body move into a really peaceful Zen place and protected when you sleep, that's fantastic. There's even been some research that having a bed at a slight incline, like a 5% incline, so having your head above your feet helps. And part of that is, we talked about the brain detoxifying while you're sleeping. If you think about, your brain and your body, it's a hydraulic system, right? So any toxins in the brain need to drain down the neck and then go into the body. If you're at an incline, then gravity's working with you. And so it helps you detoxify even more.
Setting up an ideal sleep environment is key. We really want it to be like a sanctuary. If you think about some people's setups, they have a lot of distracting information right next to them at their bedside. They might have their cell phone, their computer, a TV, alarm clock, books, clutter, work that they need to do. It's no wonder that they can't get to sleep if that's the environment that they're sleeping in. So I tell people to really look at the environment and clean that up, declutter it, get rid of anything that's unnecessary. We now know that electronics, the glare from the screen, that blue light can be really stimulating, as stimulating as a cup of coffee. So reducing that blue light, and now many screens already have it built in where it will reduce the blue light, or you can set a filter so that it will reduce that. There are even blue light blocking glasses that you can wear, and I've tried out a couple of them. They are really interesting looking, but it helps reduce that stimulation from the blue light, which can then keep people up. And then really setting the tone for a good night's sleep. What are you doing? I'll ask people, what are you doing in the hour before you go to bed? Are you watching some crazy crime scene drama that's going to get your mind going? Are you watching the nightly news? I've had people, say, I've had to turn off watching the news. I said, yeah, the news will be there tomorrow. You can read about it or watch it in the morning when you want to be awake and thinking about it. Right now, you're trying to get to sleep, so why are you riling yourself up right before you go to bed? So doing things that are more relaxing. And then setting up the body to be more relaxed, either by doing a guided visualization, a guided meditation, some light stretching, not full out physical activity, but some stretching so that you can be more comfortable. And then some herbs and nutrients are also very helpful at promoting sleep. People have heard of the sleepy time tea, so that often has some herbs in it that are very calming, like lemon balm and passion flower, chamomile. Those are some classic ones that can help really calm people down.
When it comes to sleep hygiene, there's a few things that we have to remind people of. One, a good night's sleep starts the morning of the day before you want to get a good night's sleep. So one of the things that we recommend to people is wake up at the time that you ideally want to wake up, and then expose yourself to sunlight. So that exposure to sunlight is going to tell your internal clock what time of day it is. And then if we can expose ourselves to the rising sun, that's a good place to start. If we can then expose ourselves to midday sun and then the evening sun, then our internal biology will start regulating itself. Our production of melatonin will start regulating itself better. If we can minimize our exposure to light at least 2 to 3 hours before bed, then that's going to be helpful as well. This is why you want to avoid screens if you can. You want to avoid watching television if you can, or overhead lighting or full spectrum lighting before you go to bed, because this is what regulates our sleep cycle. So our exposure to light is one of the big things. The next thing that we recommend to people is if they can get skin exposure to sunlight, then that's an additional bonus, because the skin also regulates based on that. Our skin actually has light receptors on it, so it knows what time of day it is, and that energizes us. We can get a lot of energy from our ambient environment, and so the sun always energizes us, so exposing ourselves for that reason is also very important. When it comes to sleep, you want to make sure that your room is a comfortable temperature. You want to have circulating air. You want to make sure that it's complete darkness, so as dark as you can get it, as safe as you can get it. I know some people have to wake up in the middle of the night or you have kids, but as safely as you can darken that room as much as possible, that's going to be very helpful. And you want to make sure that the positioning of your pillow is comfortable for you. You want to make sure that you're not snoring, have your partner identify if you're snoring or not. That can be very helpful, and you're taking those right measures to optimize your breathing. So positioning, and then, if you need to wear nose strips, or if you need to, get any surgical interventions, because some people have obstructions in their breathing, that can be an overlooked source of poor sleep. So have your partner evaluate your sleep for you. That can be very helpful. A few other things is I use a grounding sheet over my bed. So I sleep on a grounding sheet. So that keeps me grounded as well, keeps me connected to the earth. It's connected to the ground outlet to my house, which is connected to the earth. And so this is one of the tools that I personally use. And then for some people, they can also use lavender essential oil or a relaxing blend of oils that they can diffuse in the room, which can further deepen their state of sleep and help promote, a more parasympathetic sleep when they get rest.
So the calming ones, lavender is a typical one, but Roman chamomile also as well. And then I tell people, I'm like, go, there's so many essential oil places. Now I tell people, go and sniff them and figure which one makes you feel calm. Because some people like certain scents and other people like other scents. But you can kind of sniff test your way through that and figure out, but lavender is a great one.
So in an ideal situation, got the right light, got the right scent, circadian rhythms happening, how long should we be trying to sleep?
You need, I think, personally, 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night. Good, deep sleep. Now, I'm not a fan of Fitbits. A lot of people love those and they wear them, but for me, they disrupted my sleep. So I didn't need those electromagnetic fields on my hand, on my arm here. And I got all wiggy wondering about, what was going on there. But so a lot of people say, oh yeah, I sleep great, Danny. I sleep like a log. But, with their Fitbit on, I prefer to have my cell phone on airplane mode and have it at least 6 feet from the head of my bed. 6 feet. Distance is your friend when it comes to electromagnetic fields. Your wireless router needs to be at least 2 walls from your bedroom, okay? Or 2 floors away from you if you're up or down. If it's upstairs or downstairs, your phone needs to be at least 6 feet away from you and on airplane mode and unplugged, because if it's going to be plugged in the socket, it's still emitting electricity and EMFs. People don't realize that.
If someone who's exhausted makes changes and starts getting good restorative sleep, how long will it take for them to turn things around?
There aren't going to be immediate results, and if people need, which is so typical of our modern life, immediate gratification, which is the motivation for just about everything people do these days, I think you have to ask yourself first, what does the science tell us? What do researchers reveal in terms of how restorative sleep is? And it's immediately important. It is having effects on you the next day when you have either a bad night's sleep or a good night's sleep. Now, people may not realize that, but there are various things that you can do to determine the quality of your sleep and get that immediate reward, at least in terms of understanding the quality of your sleep. You can wear an Oura ring. There are other ways of measuring the quality of your sleep, how much time you slept in REM, how much time you slept in deep sleep. So I think it's really a question of learning about what it's doing for you in the immediate sense, controlling your appetite, raising or lowering inflammation, but also to get an understanding as to the long-term repercussions of not sleeping restoratively or sleeping restoratively, your choice. So that's when people have to use their higher order thinking and act less impulsively, bring online the prefrontal cortex to look at information and then make more appropriate decisions about your lifestyle choices, as opposed to acting amygdala-based and being impulsive and wanting immediate satisfaction and gratification.
All right, who's ready for some shut-eye? Just kidding. Miles to go before I sleep. But when I get there, I'm gonna make those Z's count. Who knew that sleep was so complicated? When we're little, we just close our eyes after a long day of play and bam, we're out like a light. How things change as we get older. The great underlying nugget when it comes to sleep is that in order to get it right, we need to re-envision the way we're living our lives and fall back into the natural rhythms of the planet and ourselves. Okay, so what did we just learn? We need at least 8 hours of restorative sleep per day in order to maintain healthy energy levels. Sleep is healing and allows for regeneration on both the physical and mental side. Fatigue is a symptom of brain inflammation, and sleep is the most anti-inflammatory process that we can engage in. Cell phones, TVs, computers, and other devices in the bedroom disrupt our sleep patterns. Sleep drive comes from the accumulation of adenosine in a specific region of the brain. When it reaches a certain level, we get sleepy. The circadian rhythm is a 24-hour clock in your brain that regulates neurotransmitters and governs your sleep cycles. Quality sleep stimulates the growth hormone, fountain of youth compound, that everyone wants. We have 5 sleep cycles across the night. Completing all 5 of these is key to a fully restorative night's sleep.
I hope you're enjoying this episode. We'll get right back into it in a second, but I wanted to take a moment to tell you how you can own the entire series. Below this video, you'll find a link to the full Exhausted docuseries, as well as a bunch of powerful bonuses that you could bring into your home at a special discounted price. This also includes an Exhausted companion guidebook that's jam-packed with powerful takeaways and action items from each episode. It's loaded with deep dive wisdom that isn't included in our free premiere. On top of that, we're hosting 2 live Q&As where you can ask questions directly to some of the renowned experts you see in these episodes. If you're interested in bringing these powerful healing solutions into your life, it's well worth checking out. Plus, proceeds from your purchase will help us on our quest to unveil new breakthrough medicines and share this information with the world. Make sure you check it out. Now, back to this episode.
What are you doing?
I'm taking my pulse. I'm trying to see if my heart is handling the stress of hosting this series with this guy.
And?
I don't know, man. I'm not really feeling one.
Let me ask you something. Do doctors of Oriental medicine get equipped with stethoscopes?
We do, but we also have this whole other system where we get 27 different pulses using our fingers in 3 positions. It's pretty remarkable. You could find out so much about a person by measuring the quality of their blood flow.
When I first started measuring my heart rate on a regular basis, it blew me away. There's an intimate connection between your heart and the different states of your brain. So, if you're trying to train your brain to be in the most positive, resourceful, stress-free state for as much of the day as possible, simply tracking heart rate can be an incredible life hack, as you're about to find out. Pedram, what do we have coming up next?
In this next segment, we're going to be diving into your heart, an organ/muscle in your body that is more mitochondria-rich than any other part of your body. Again, your mitochondria are the power plants of your cells, where glucose is converted into ATP, the energy currency that your entire body relies on. Your beating heart requires a boatload of mitochondria in order to keep running, and by improving cardiovascular function, we can greatly improve energy levels. Let's take a look.
The way to look at the heart is that the heart is at the center of everything that happens in the body. And I like to use the orchestra. That is the conductor. He's the guy that is telling everyone how to stay on beat. So the quality of that beat is very important, and the quality of the blood is very important. The quality of the vessels of the heart and the vessels throughout the body that it's pumping to are important. So those are like the people, the pianist, the violinist, all those people. If any of them are off, it's going to affect the sound. But think of it as the guy who's telling the drum to stay on beat. Well, what we want is the heart to be on beat and to be synchronized with the brain. So the heart is the one actually giving the brain most of the information to dictate. And we used to think it was sort of the other way around. We used to think it was the brain that's telling the heart and the rest of the body what to do. But it's actually 90% of the signaling comes from the heart to the brain. And so they're always in communication. It's back and forth, and it's always in communication with every single other organ.
Heart health is probably one of the most confusing topics in the realm of nutrition, because for so long we've been told that we have to eat low fat and low calorie to protect our heart and stay away from saturated fats like butter and coconut oil. And we now know that a lot of that actually isn't true. We actually need good, healthy fat to support our heart health, and that's going to support optimal energy levels. So I actually recommend eating plenty of healthy fat, not skimping on coconut oil, avocado, even butter. It's really good for your heart. Butter and eggs is I think the best breakfast for heart health. And I think that's really surprising to a lot of people, because we've been told that, stay away from cholesterol and stay away from saturated fat and only eat egg whites. And all of that was really based on theory, and it's not protective to our heart. We actually need the good, healthy fat in the egg yolks to protect our heart.
The heart is a very high priority organ, and we're wired as human beings in survival priority order. So the things that keep you alive in the moment are the things that get the most energy. from the body. So a relatively low priority organ, for example, would be the skin. It's nice to have beautiful skin, but your skin can get pretty funky and it's not a survival threat. Your heart, on the other hand, heart, brain, lungs, liver, those are very high priority organs. So your body prioritizes those in terms of nutrients, the constituents that we need to be able to stay healthy from our food. So the heart is going to get what it needs, and we end up dying of heart problems and these high priority organs. People don't die of sexual malfunctioning or muscular problems, skin issues, vision problems. They end up dying of those things that finally the body just doesn't have enough to give everything. So the heart is so intricately connected with the rest of the body that its needs are very similar for everything else. It needs glucose for energy, and it has the same needs basically as every other cell. So really, bottom line, to keep the heart healthy is just to stay well nourished with all the various micronutrients. Again, we go back to the chronic subclinical nutritional deficiency. That's the key for the reason that people are so fatigued in the last 50 years.
Another surprising thing for heart health is we've kind of been told to eat, oatmeal for heart health with a glass of orange juice, and actually all of that sugar can be really damaging to our heart. I kind of think of it like when you consume all those carbohydrates, they turn to sugar in your body, and I think of that as like these little pieces of glass that are like cutting up your vessels and causing inflammation inside. And instead of that, we want to be like lubricating our body, and that's going to really help support our heart. So instead of having all the carbs, trading that in for some good protein and fat, like in the eggs and the butter.
Can you give some big picture layman's science to help us invest in our heart health and hopefully raise our energy?
One of the most important things that we need to do for our heart health is to make sure that our mitochondria are fed well. And that's because the mitochondria within the cells are the energy centers. So they're the ones that are making the energy, and our heart has the most mitochondria within its muscle. So if our mitochondria are not well fed, our muscle is not going to be well fed, our heart muscle is not going to be well fed, and so our heart's not going to be as healthy as it possibly can.
Between the brain, the heart, and the liver, that's the vast majority of energy that you're using at any given time. Most of the calories that we consume go into maintaining what's called the basal metabolic rate, the amount of calories that you burn just to maintain heartbeat and body temperature.
The heart is full of mitochondria, and it's all muscle, and so it is in charge of getting oxygen to the cells, which is needed for energy production. So if you have poor circulation, which I find very, very common, where the tips of the hands, the tip of the nose even, and the feet are cold, that might be a sign of poor circulation. And nutrient exchange happens at the end of the vessel. So the analogy I use is, imagine you're on the freeway and I have to feed you. You have to make it to my living room. You have to make it and sit there. How is your car going to get there? Well, we have these big, big vessels. That's the freeway. And then you have to exit and you get into smaller, and eventually you get into the alleyway and then into my garage, through the door, and then you make it to the table. So basically it has to keep going and make it to the table. A lot of people, what I'm seeing more and more, especially as we age, we have this microvascular disease. So it means on the small level, these little vessels are closing up and that nutrient exchange can't happen. And that's going to affect your energy because you're not going to get oxygen and nutrient exchange occurring there. So that's like you coming to my garage and the door's closed, or there's just so much garbage there that you can't get in. It's all full of plaque, or there's been so much tension in my garage, let's think of hypertension, high blood pressure, that it actually burst the whole thing open and it doesn't even work anymore. So there's been damage done at that level. This is what we also call in medicine endothelial dysfunction, where it has a lot of research for heart disease and strokes and heart attacks, where the inner lining of the artery isn't working well, and that is actually what's contributing to a lot of these people who have heart attacks with family history of heart attacks but have normal lipids and normal cholesterol levels.
Heart disease is the #1 killer in Western cultures. And, we can be very sophisticated as it pertains to honoring the energy of the heart. But the research would would share a story that it is nutrition, strategically placed nutrition, so well-balanced nutrition, and movement that are actually going to have the strongest outcomes with respect to the heart. We have to have those as sort of fundamental grounding places with respect to heart health. If you're not moving and you're not eating well, it's really difficult for all of the other things that you can do to be helpful. When we have those fundamentals in place, that's really where we have an opportunity to look at some of the mental emotional pieces. So there literally is a broken heart syndrome. When we carry these different forms of pain, these have implications on cardiovascular output. We have seen that and know that. But again, we've got to come back to those fundamentals, the movement and the nutrition. Then we can look at the mental, emotional. Then again, we can look at exposure. Then we can address all of these other pieces, all of these more individualized pieces with respect to heart health. But those foundationals are instrumental in ensuring that we maintain an effective and healthy cardiovascular system.
If you have any of these symptoms, like I said, where you have cold hands and feet, even GI issues could be microvascular disease. Patients who have had heart attacks or strokes, you can always look back and kind of guess who had actually microvascular disease and who had GI issues for 10, 20 years, and they were put on a proton pump inhibitor, and that actually was the incorrect diagnosis, and it was actually microvascular disease. And you'll see that congestive heart failure, pulmonary vascular disease, sometimes the only symptom they have is fatigue, and that's because they're not getting the nutrients. The heart is responsible, but it's more than just the heart. It's the quality of the blood, the beat, the vessels, and then the mitochondria, the mitochondrial function. So again, in these places, you can use the D-ribose, the L-carnitine, the CoQ10, the NAD, a lot of these nutrients to help the mitochondria. And there's research on things that can help the vessels, the actual vascular system, which is so key in heart health and exercise and energy.
There are specific supplements that can actually help your mitochondria. There's one that's actually called PQQ, and their thoughts are that it's actually helping you to develop more mitochondria. So that is an exciting area that we can start to look at as far as not only just taking what we have, but increasing that and biohacking it to be a higher level of things that can help our heart as well.
We all know that exercise is important for health, heart health in particular, but how does it feed into energy and exhaustion?
Exercise, physical exercise, is definitely medicine, and we hear that a lot. Exercise is medicine. One of my favorite ways to think about it is that when we get physical exercise, it's like we're getting the benefits of the top-selling pharmaceutical drugs without any of the side effects, because we're getting mood enhancement and we're getting pain decrease through things like endorphins. We're getting an anti-anxiety. We're getting a lift from things like depression. So there's all of these things happening. Focus and attention is enhanced. So we're getting all of these nudges to our neurons just by getting circulation, by challenging our body. And a lot of that is designed as well to protect us, so that if we're in actually a stressful situation and we need to mobilize, that we feel better and we're going to keep moving forward. But it also challenges the brain and the body in a different way that builds resilience over time.
The way that exercise impacts heart health is fairly well researched. Most people know about this. And it's often true that when people are tired and they drag themselves to their exercise routine, or they finally get home and they start to walk the dog even though they'd rather sit down, pretty soon they're clicking their heels. The actual activity of moving our bodies not only liberates stores of fat that we would like to have liberated so that we can turn it back into the kind of material that our body can burn for fuel, but also so that we can excrete. But those fats are also really great for our brains. So we become less depressed, we become less anxious. Most people are familiar with the impact of reducing tension and stress by exercising. You can exercise really hard, had a really bad day, go for a really good run or have a great workout, come back sweaty, but feeling like, oh, problem is more manageable now. I can see my way around that. I can figure out, it creates ways for our brains and our bodies to have better intercommunication so that we're responding to our environment, our outside external set of stressors, with more equanimity and also with more capacity, more capability.
So I know for myself, when I'm really feeling anxious or even when I'm feeling down and depressed, movement or exercise of some sort is always my go-to strategy. It's just customizing it based on how I'm feeling and which stress reaction patterns I'm having. So for example, if it's a more high energy state, maybe feeling more anxious or restless or overwhelmed, then a high intensity workout can be a great way to just burn off that extra adrenaline and also improve something called our heart rate variability, which is really our cardiovascular system's ability to adjust and bounce back from challenge. So over time, the more we challenge ourselves, the better we are at rebounding or bouncing back from those challenges. At the same time, if we're feeling more down, it can be really easy to think that, well, we just need to sleep more, or we just need to, rest and kind of curl up in a ball. And that could be exactly the wrong thing to do, because gentle movement and consistent activity is so important to also flushing the system of things like cortisol and keeping them from becoming toxic to the system. So of everything that we've studied, I feel like exercise is the one that really there's no downside to doing. There are ways to find enjoyable, consistent movement throughout the day, even if it's not putting on spandex and going to the gym. But dancing or walking or playing with your children can all get our system mobilizing that energy in a better way.
Health professionals always measure the heart with the pulse, the electrocardiogram, blood pressure. Now some are measuring this thing called heart rate variability. What is that measuring and what does that tell us?
HRV is a common term now. People are hearing more and more about it. It's known as heart rate variability. And I'll give you a high-level understanding of it. So between each heartbeat, there's variance. So for example, if somebody's heart's beating 60 beats per minute, each beat isn't exactly a second apart. There's a variance between each beat by a few microseconds. And so that's something that devices like the HeartMath device can actually pick up on. And that variance tells us the state of our physiology. So if we're in a parasympathetic state, we're going to have a higher heart rate variability. If we're in a sympathetic state, we're going to have a lower heart rate variability. And because of that information, we can then determine the state of somebody's healing, their regeneration, the repair, all of those things.
Some studies have shown, especially with heart attacks on the rise, heart disease being one of our number one concerns in our modern industrialized culture, that the heart that beats steadily like a clock is more likely to have a problem. That the heart that is able to take chaotic beats, it can get really excited with a piece of music, or it can take a really disturbing phone call, and it can do what is called complex or chaotic rhythm. That heart is a lot more stable in the face of the pressures that we're all under these days. So heart healthy sleep includes having dreams and having your heart flutter while you're dreaming. You don't have to remember what you dreamt about. It might wake you up, it might not. But the point about a healthy heart is that it is a heart that is in action as well as a heart that can rest. And it's no surprise that the heart is designed so that while some parts are functioning, some parts are resting, just like our whole organisms.
The thing with HRV that's interesting is that that variance will tell us if we're in that sympathetic or parasympathetic state, and we can actually look at it visually. So we can get immediate feedback on the state of our physiology, and then we can use our breathing and structure our breathing in such a way to get us in a maximum state of coherence. So when we have high heart rate variability, we have higher coherence. When we have low heart rate variability, we have low coherence. High coherence means that we're in a healing, repair, and regenerative state. We use our breath to get into that regenerative state, and we have immediate neurofeedback that tells us, hey, this is what it should feel like. And now we're actually exercising that system. We're actually exercising, just like we'd exercise our arms or legs or our chest, we're exercising our nervous system. And so this is a tool that actually measures that for us, gives us immediate feedback, and then allows us to Again, gamify the process if we want to, but at least track our progress over a period of time so we can see how we can improve that. And it's also great information that you can share with your practitioner. So it really allows you to quantify your meditation mindfulness practice and allows you to exercise that system in your body.
I use a brain scan to test people, an EEG of the brain, to see what's going on in the brain, often because they may have depression, anxiety, ADD, memory loss, dementia. And what I love about that test is it's actually giving me a clue into their heart and into the sympathetic mode. It can actually measure and tell us how sympathetic someone is and how parasympathetic they are. Most of my patients are sympathetic dominant, but we'll sometimes find people who've become parasympathetic dominant. That means they're almost too sluggish and too slow, and the brain isn't firing as much. You want a balance of both. You also want the heart rate to be variable. And that's another measure that this test gives me, is looking at how their HRV is, heart rate variability. Because when there is a lie-in, you want your heart rate right away to change and to tell your brain, get out of there. So you want variability. You want that orchestra to be able to change and not just be playing the same beat. You want it to get fast and then slow. And that's what makes life adaptable. That is actually vitality. That is energy. But when we're stagnant, we don't react appropriately. And that heart rate variability is very stiff and low. So meditation, mindfulness, and just getting you to breathe, your breath, your vagal tone, which is stimulated through your diaphragm, which then tells your brain that I am in a calm state, that can help that heart rate variability as well. So there are so many apps out there. There's a lot of things that we use, biofeedback, neurofeedback, where patients can just put it on their ear, their finger, and watch their own heart rate and see how should I be breathing based on what my heart rate variability is showing me. And how should my exhale be? How should my inhale be? Should there be a pause in there, And so these are tools that people can really use to help their exhaustion, is through that sympathetic, parasympathetic balancing and heart rate variability.
There's so much going on in the heart and in the brain. So what do we know about the heart-brain axis and how are they connected?
So there's all of this science of the heart, right? We know that it's important to do cardiovascular workouts for the cardiovascular system, and our pump for the cardiovascular system is the heart. But there's also like this incredible energy of the heart. Do you know these stories about heart transplant patients who actually have memories of the people whose hearts they have? It's amazing. Like the heart is almost like its own universe, its own world. And we all have an energy field that comes out from our heart and surrounds us. And your intentions, your heart actually your brain has to check in with your heart. And your heart has neural cells in it. Your brain has to check in with your heart before you make decisions. And that's why when you feel like someone's out of alignment with what they're saying to you, listen to your intuition. Your heart knows. Your brain is checking in with your heart. If your heart misses a beat and you're like, I feel like something's off, you've got your gut talking to you, you've got your heart talking to you, and you've got your brain talking to you. These three brains that you have, and they all sync up.
There was a study done and looked at 400 patients over a 20-year period, individuals with cardiovascular disease. Those who identified as having a sense of purpose in life saw a 72% reduction in their risk of stroke. And so these types of outcomes, when it comes to understanding the things that drive a healthy mental, emotional picture, this isn't a one-off study where we started to see and understand these pieces. We see similar things with respect to Alzheimer's. We see similar things with respect to autoimmune recovery. And so that mental emotional piece, I think, has not been sufficiently unpacked, but we're seeing more and more research drawing a clear correlation between someone's mental emotional state and their overarching health outcomes. And in particular, it's one sense of purpose. It's that particular detail where we're actually seeing some of the strongest outcomes with respect to mental emotional health.
So that connection that you have between your heart and your brain, it really has a lot to do with your heart rate variability and getting that to be in sync with the rest of your energy body, with your system. I feel like sometimes I must sound like I'm out there because I'm this fitness trainer, but like all of these things are so connected. Your body is a group of systems. and they all work together. It's not just one in a vacuum that's just doing all the work. You know, it's just like you can't just work out and get these results that you're looking for. You have to also pay attention to your nutrition and your sleep and your stress. And you have to think about your heart, your mind, your gut, like this beautiful fusion of these three important brains that are all working to serve you. Every cell in your body at every moment in time is working dedicated to serving you. That's what they're doing. That's their intention 100% of the time. So once you get that and you realize that, you're just like, oh, how could I not want to serve them? How could I not want to take care of myself? How could I not want to, oh, heart math is helpful? How I want to do that. I want to give myself that. You have to fall in love with your life, with your body. You have to give yourself these gifts. You have to take care of yourself, take care of your energy.
You know, in some cultures, the heart is considered to be the center of it all. In the Far East, the heart is considered to be the emperor of all the organs, sitting high above the brain, actually, in the pecking order. We're in a very brain-centric culture here in the West, elevating that organ above all others. But in many traditional cultures, it's the heart that unites our being. And it's even looked at as the center of our deeper innate wisdom. I think we're beginning to see why this is. Okay, so here are some of the things we just learned. 90% of the signaling between the heart and the brain is from the heart to the brain. Contrary to what we've been taught, fats and cholesterol are not all bad for your heart. Nourishing our mitochondrial health, by extension, nourishes our heart health. As we age, small pathways to and from our heart begin to close up, creating blockages and lack of circulation. Heart disease is the #1 killer before cancer and other major ailments. Exercise gives us all the benefits of the best medicines on earth, but created within our own bodies at the perfect doses. Exercise liberates stores of fat and toxins so they can be burned or excreted from our bodies. Intentional breath work and mindfulness practices are the fastest way to bring your heart rate variability into an optimal state. For our final segment, we're going to touch on a part of our lives that you could argue is more important than food, water, or sunlight.
It's the first thing we do when we enter this world upon birth. We breathe.
Did you know that the word inspiration is actually referring to the way we relate to our breath?
Think about it. Inspire is from the Latin word inspiro, which means to breathe into.
Our breath is where all good things begin, but it's also the first place where our health can start to go awry. A shocking number of people are shallow breathers, meaning they're not able to take deep diaphragmatic breaths. The result of this is not enough oxygen to the body, including your brain. This is bad. Here's Nick to lead us into the next segment on repairing your health with breath work.
Even though we rarely think about it, breathing is actually a voluntary process. Unlike our heartbeat, you can decide to stop breathing, or you can intentionally change the depth and frequency of your breath to access different states of awareness, as we're about to find out.
Breathing is really important. It's automatic, but it's also something we have voluntary control over. Yeah, often people are shallow breathers. They don't fully oxygenate their tissues. They don't increase their circulation like they need to actually get the oxygen to their tissues, which can cause fatigue.
I think the breath is just this most fundamental benchmark of are we alive, right? And all of the great teachers and all the great philosophies, they always want us to bring it back to breath because, you know, aside from hydration, it is really one of those fundamental building blocks of life. And what I find incredible as a clinician is we can hook people up to technology and we can measure what's happening with respect to their nervous system. And the second we get people to engage in deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing, where they fill their entire lungs, where their belly expands, where they slow things down, we can watch their nervous system change from that sympathetic place of fight or flight over to that parasympathetic state. And I think, like eating, we can get caught up in all of the nuances of how we should be breathing. But if we can actually just start, we can breathe in through our nose and we can slow it down. And I have all my patients start by counting to 4, holding for 4, breathing out for 4, and just repeating this cycle. And literally in less than 16 seconds, when we have people hooked up to heart rate variability monitors or other really interesting tools, we can see their nervous system beginning to calm down.
I love breath work and I love meditation because it is activating our parasympathetics. So the part or the branch of the autonomic nervous system that's involved in resting and digesting. So we've talked about the sympathetics, how it's the stress response, all the blood goes into the periphery to get ready to run away from the stressor. The parasympathetics are the exact opposite of that. So we will have all the blood going inward now, going towards the viscera, the digestive system, the reproductive system, the immune system. And we can hack into that and we can activate our parasympathetics through breath work. And it's actually really cool. We have a nerve, it's called the vagus nerve. It comes off of the brain stem and it literally weaves through the entire body. It has connections to each and every single organ that we have. And you can activate vagus by, I like to activate it with extending or doubling your exhale relative to your inhale.
As we talk to more and more people who are using breath work, we understand that chanting things like Om and how we sing and the way that we can start to manipulate our breath, all of them are essentially moving us to the same place. A nervous system that was stuck in that fight or flight mode over to that parasympathetic place. But it starts by fundamentally being able to slow it down. And if you can do that through your nose, and you can actually expand your belly, that's step 1 for people. And then there is a plethora of advanced maneuvers that people can get into with respect to breath. But for most people, there's such a lack of awareness around how to breathe and where to send that breath and what can be happening in the nervous system that I find for almost 80% of our patients, that's all they need. That's where we need to get them started. Most people don't know how to breathe.
How would you suggest that we do this kind of breathing? Sitting, standing, or lying down?
Learning practices like deep breathing techniques can be a profound way to oxygenate your tissues, to increase your energy. Yogic breathing can be very powerful. There's something called pranayama, which is a whole series of breathing techniques designed to either calm the nervous system or energize the body. And they can be practiced really in a matter of a couple of minutes and have profound effect on changing your state and your energy.
We take it for granted, but most people, if we said right now, I want you to take a deep breath in, most of us would see shoulders rise. We fill up right here and we use the top third lobe of our lungs as opposed to the bottom 2/3, which is what actually gets to our extremities. So to really give all the tissues in our entire body good oxygenated blood, we've got to take a deep breath and we need to do belly breathing. And we need to be retaught how to do that correctly on a regular basis. And for a lot of people, just the fact of taking one deep breath in, exhaling it fully, can decrease tension and can actually change blood chemistry.
One would think that breathing is natural and needs no instruction. After all, you need to breathe to live, right? But is it possible to feel better if we start breathing better?
Most people are actually mouth breathers, and I really encourage you to practice being a nose breather. There's so much science backing that when you breathe through your nose rather than your mouth, it actually activates parasympathetic nervous system to decrease stress, to activate our gut lining so that we can have good digestive system.
So every breath cycle, we have an inhale for a certain count and an exhale for a certain count. But if you can mindfully and consciously, let's say you inhale for 2 counts, your exhale will be double that. So it'll be 4 counts. Or if you inhale for 3 counts, you're going to exhale for 6, inhale for 4, exhale for 8, etc. This is a way that we can activate our vagus nerve, and that is very parasympathetic in nature. So you're going to help with your digestion, you're going to help with your reproductive system, you're going to help with your immune system. And it is one of the most powerful, cheap, easy, and free ways that we can start removing or reducing some of that sympathetic dominance that we are exposed to in everyday modern life.
It also helps clean out bacteria and allergens that come in through the body. Little microvilli in our nose will help to be the first defense against those bacterial inputs. Rather, if they come in through our mouth, that is connected to our gut lining, which is connected to everything. Gut health is impacted by sleep and your mindset and how you feel every day, and hormone regulation, and even protein building. So breathing through your nose has so many benefits, and it's simple.
One of my favorites is box breath. And box breath there's a lot of research on it. It's used by Navy SEALs to bring hyper focus as well as maintaining a calm nervous system so that they can make, hyper-focused decisions in really stressful situations, yet still remaining calm. So the box breath is great for, I would say, in the morning. If somebody is not the type of person that wakes up amped up and ready to go, it's a great way to bring focus into the mind, but also keep your nervous system down. And then also, too, I love the box breath for the middle of the day. So for instance, instead of, I don't drink coffee in the morning, and I don't drink coffee in the middle of the day, I use box breath, and it really does amp up the energy. And the box breath is very simple. You just inhale over the count of 4, you hold for 4, you exhale for 4, and then you hold for 4. And then you just keep going into that box so you don't take a break. And what I like to say is start with doing it 3 times. Start with doing it 5 times, work your way up to maybe doing a minute, work your way up to doing 3 minutes, 5 minutes. The Navy SEALs, they usually do it for 20 to 30 minutes a day. And it's really powerful. So you just go... And even just doing it 3 times like that, I feel calm. I feel a little bit buzzy. I feel a little more flushed in my face, like I have some more energy. But I feel still very focused. I don't feel sleepy or super relaxed, even though I feel calm.
Ideally, you're going to sit up on the edge of your chair, and you want to spread your fingers out. So you've got jazz hands going on, and you're going to put your fingertips or thumbs kind of on your pelvis and on the bottom of your ribs. And as you take a deep breath in, you don't want to feel your shoulders rise, but you want to feel your lower belly expand like a balloon. So most women don't want to do this, right? Because that's not what we're looking for. And yet you want to take a huge deep breath in, expand it, hold it for a second. And then what you're going to do is try to blow out as if you're blowing through a straw. And you're going to keep blowing out until you get to the point where you're coughing. Right? And what's happening there is you're actually using more diaphragmatic breathing. And when you experience that, you can begin to do it more on a regular basis. But we've got to practice it because it's not where we're at. We're usually shoulder girls. We're right up here, or guys, right? So it's this going up and down that's wasting energy. And for a lot of women who carry their tension in their neck and their shoulders and their upper back, they're contributing to that as well. If you don't have the energy to get up and start moving, start with small breathing exercises. Start getting more oxygen into all of your tissues. And there's always one small step you can take, even though there may be things you're feeling that there's a long list of things you can't do. There's something to counter every one of those that you can do right now.
What I always like to say is we can live without food for a period of time. We can live without water for a period of time, but you really cannot live without your breath. You only have a limited amount of time that you'll be able to survive without your breath. So breath is life. And when you consciously bring more life into your body, then not only do you bring more energy, you bring more consciousness, you bring more awareness and mindfulness. I've been able to watch people heal disease states. I've been able to watch people heal conditions, trauma, just through accessing more of their breath and more of their lung capacity. So, depending on what type of breathwork technique you're using or breathwork healing, I feel like there's 2 separate categories. Techniques are more things that you can use in the moment. Healing is more of a a space that you would want somebody to be holding for you until you've learned how to really facilitate it for yourself. But that once you access more of your breath, not only do you bring that oxygen into your body and energize yourself, but then you also have more connection to your feelings and your thoughts and something bigger than you.
Did you know your breath could do that? It's kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? One of my favorite things from this segment, which is super relevant right now, is that nose breathing not only puts you into the desired parasympathetic state, but it also helps to filter out toxic microbes before they enter your body. In our current landscape of respiratory etiquette to keep viruses at bay, nose breathing is a powerful hack. Okay, let's look at what else we just learned. Many people shallow breathe without realizing it, depriving their bodies of sufficient amounts of oxygen. Through breath work, we can calm the vagus nerve and hence relax our entire body. Simple breathing techniques like pranayamic yogic breathing practices can have a profound effect on your energy levels. Set your phone to give you an alert once every hour to remind you to take some deep belly breaths. Using essential oils in conjunction with breathing exercises can help bring your body into a state of relaxation much faster. Before we go, make sure to click the button below this video to find out how you can bring all 9 episodes of the Exhausted docuseries plus a bunch of powerful bonus resources into your home for life. Every one of us deserves to know the full spectrum of healing options that are out there for us. The information in this series is something you will want to come back to again and again whenever you experience a feeling of energy depletion or fatigue, be it with your own health or that of your family and friends. You can own the digital all-access package at a special discounted price during this event only. Now is the time.
So your homework is to use the tools we've provided here to get some better Z's. Then, during the daytime, pick one of our takeaways to focus on your heart health. Look, it could be an exercise, a supplement, or an HRV monitor. It's your choice, but please just take some kind of action.
And remember to breathe. So many of us are doing this simple action unconsciously, not putting enough stake in how much our respiration affects our overall health and definitely our energy levels.
Up next, we're gonna get moody on you guys. For real. We're gonna be investigating some of the underlying causes of anxiety, depression, anger, and road rage. Those emotions that we all have and are seldom proud of.
Are these just an uncontrollable part of our human existence, or are there measures we can take to master our moods and overcome life's adversities without all the drama?
I think you know our answer to this question, and that's where we're headed next time. We will see you then.
Ciao.